Awesome. So, hey guys, hi. Welcome to another IPF workshop. We are now doing this, after quite a long time. So, I'm so glad that all of you are here. It's been quite a while. For those who are new, I'm Priya. I'm the founder of IPF. IPF is India's biggest buy-sell platform for kids product. We regularly host workshops, on different parenting topics where we invite experts to, share their knowledge and guide the entire community. This session is around baby sleep, something every parent has struggled with, at some point, and we have Aditi Mohan leading this one. Aditi is not only, an IPF parent who has been part of the community, since I think last 1, 2 years, right? She has been a very, very early member. But she herself has gone through a lot of these sleep struggles. But she decided to take action, do a deep dive and get proper certification. And, she's a pediatric sleep consultant. Uh, and now she's developing her own practice, to help other parents and starting with us with this workshop. So we are really, really excited to have her, with us. Just two things, before we start off the workshop. So the format is for the next 45 minutes, Aditi will basically share all about, baby sleep, all the tips and everything. In between, we can take one or two questions, but questions will be only taken through the chat. So if you have any questions, please make sure that you are using the chat and, writing it over there. We will not be taking any live or audio questions. And the last 15 minutes will be complete Q&A. So we will basically go through all the questions in mentioned in the chat and, addressed each one of them. So this is the format. So let's start this off. Just before that, I just want to share with everyone that, in case you want to do a one-on-one consult with Aditi, to do a deep dive with respect to your baby sleep patterns, you can avail a 15% discount, which she has provided to IPF community using just IPF 15. So feel free to share that across. I will share more details in the chat, right? So yeah, let's start.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction, Priyadashta. And hi, everybody. I'm so glad to see the turnout. And I know, like Priyadashta said, sleep can be super hard. I have literally gone through that. So it's safe to say that I can understand each one of your positions. But hopefully today, a little something about that will change because I'm hoping to take you through everything that you need to know about your baby sleep so that tomorrow when you wake up, it'll be a little better than today, right? So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. If any of y'all have any issues with respect to the audio or the video, please ping in the chat and we will be able to rectify that. Okay, so I am sharing my screen. Hopefully it's visible to everybody.
Yes, it is.
And okay, so let's start. Like Darshita said, I have started a little something on my own to help parents like me or to make their life and rest a little bit better. We're called NIDRA, and we'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end. But now, what we're all here for is to understand everything you need to know about your baby sleep. So, what are we going to be talking about today? I'm going to broadly be covering these five topics, which will start with the basics, which is the science of sleep. Then we will move on to naps, transition and naps. Then we will move on to the infamous regressions, sleep disruptors. Then we will finally touch upon the bedtime routine and deviations. So let's start. First things first, right? So when we talk about sleep, we have to go to the very basics of the sleep. Now, when you talk about sleep and the basic of sleep, the primary thing that we have to understand is what is a sleep cycle and how to understand the sleep cycle. Now, to give a very basic understanding of what this could be is all our sleep cycles, whether it's in a baby or whether it's an adult, we all go through the same stages of sleep. That is your REM sleep and your NREM sleep. Now, REM stands for rapid eye movement. NREM stands for non-rapid eye movement. Now, our sleep cycle looks something like this. We start with the non-REM stage of sleep. Then we move on to the REM stage of sleep, which we colloquially call active sleep. So this is where you have your dreams and all of that. And after this REM sleep, we come to a brief state of wakefulness or a brief state of awareness, where we become aware of our surroundings. Now let's talk a little bit more about these stages, right? Because understanding this will help you understand why your baby sleeps a certain way. Now, in your NREM sleep, there is again a division of N1, N2, N3, and N4. Let's talk about what happens in each of these stages. Now, to understand this a little better, let's imagine this or understand this through an example. Now, imagine your baby is used to being rocked to sleep. Maybe along with rocking, you also pat your baby or also sing to your baby. Now, let's assume for this example that it's your baby's sleep time, whether it is nap or bedtime, whatever, you're taking your baby to the room, you're drawing the curtains, you're turning on the fan, whatever it is, whatever your routine is, you do all of that. Now, all of these are cues which signals your baby that, okay, my mom is shutting the curtains or turning on the fan. It's time for me to sleep. So when this happens, you slowly move into you start with the N1 stage of sleep. This stage is basically us signaling to the body that it is time to relax, that we are going to go into a mode of rest. So N1 stage of sleep is basically preparation of the body to relax and go into a state of rest or to allow onset of sleep. So that is what your N1 stage is. Now your N2 stage is a state of light sleep. You know how everybody talks about how you should put your baby in bed when they're drowsy but awake? That is exactly what N2 stage is, where your baby is drowsy, which means the body has received signal that it is time to relax, it's time to sleep. So they're drowsy, but they're not asleep. Now, what happens here? You see they're slowly shutting their eyes and they're like drifting off into sleep, but they're not yet gone to sleep, which means what happens is they're in a drowsy state. So which means if you're patting your baby or you're singing and your fan is making a peculiar noise, your baby is not going to be disturbed by these things because your baby is already accustomed to it and is going to continue to be drowsy. But say, for instance, suddenly a cracker bursts outside or somebody drops something in the hall, right? Then your baby is going to come back into a state of consciousness, which means they're going to move out of the drowsy state. But essentially, when each of these disruptions don't occur, you have your baby, your baby is basically drowsy but awake during your N2 stage. Now, your N3 and N4 stages are stages of deep sleep. Now, what happens in this deep sleep is basically the body is completely gone into sleep. Your baby is asleep. The body is relaxing. Now, at N3 and N4, all the reparation happens. All the development happens at this stage. They're in a complete state of deep sleep, which means they're not affected by the external environment. So now if somebody is screaming or music is playing, whatever happens, your baby is not going to wake up during N3 and N4, which means they've lost all consciousness or awareness of the surrounding. So these are your N1 to N4 stages. Now, right after your N4 happens, the baby moves to the next cycle, which is your REM cycle, which is also known as active sleep. Like how we discussed, your N1 signals the body that it is time for sleep. REM signals the body that it is time to wake up. So slowly what happens when you sleep, usually the body temperature goes down, your heart rate goes down. But then when you slowly move to your REM cycle, all of this comes back to normal levels again, which means your body temperature rises, your heartbeat rises. So it slowly starts signaling the brain that it's time to become conscious or it's time to become aware of your surroundings and it's time to wake up. So that's what happens in your REM stage. So right after REM stage, we all come to a state of brief wakefulness. Now, this sleep cycle, right, that we spoke about, which is your NREM and your REM, it's usually between 45 to 60 minutes in babies. So if your baby is waking up every 45 to 60 minutes or 50 minutes, then you know it's because they've completed one sleep cycle and they're having a little trouble starting the next one. Now, there are a lot of reasons as to why they would have, they could probably be having trouble starting the next one, but we'll get into that a little later. But essentially, a sleep, whether it is your daytime nap or a nighttime sleep, is made up of multiple sleep cycles, right? So often the problem area is because they've completed a sleep cycle and they don't know how to start a new one. Now, it's similar in adults also, right? So except the only difference is the duration of a sleep cycle in an adult is anywhere between 90 to 120 minutes. It's also true that adults also wake up 4 or 5 times at night. It's just that we don't realize because we're able to go back to sleep on our own. So often this looks like, we'll wake up, we'll change our sides, fluff the pillow a little bit, drink water and go back to sleep. When you wake up, you don't even remember these things. But the point is that we all come to a state of brief wakefulness before we start our next cycle. So that is what happens with respect to your babies, and this is what your sleep cycle also looks like. Now, now that we've spoken about sleep cycles, let's talk a little bit about, yeah, let's talk a little bit about a very important but neglected aspect of sleep, which is naps. Now, every time somebody says sleep, we automatically think of night sleep. We automatically think about sleeping through the night, but it's often associated with the night. None of us look at daytime sleep. But it is very important for us to understand that how your daytime sleep is, or what is the length or the quality of your naps, is literally what characterizes the nighttime sleep. You will often notice that babies that sleep well during the day or are well rested during the day generally tend to be better sleepers at night as well. Now, when we talk about naps, right, between the age of 0 to 3 months, they're almost baby-led because during this period, their biological clock is not yet set. So they take naps for however long they want and whenever they want. But anytime after the age of 3.5 months, sometimes even 4 months, the naps usually get consolidated into 3 naps a day. Some babies even do 4 naps a day. And these consolidated naps usually are the first nap is usually within 1 or 2 hours of waking up. And this is often considered to be an extension of the night sleep. So it is always closer to the wake time than later. So if you feel like even though your baby has slept, say, 10 or 11 hours at night, but the sleep was disturbed, or they were cranky, or they found it hard to settle, or there were multiple wake-ups, you will notice that the next day they will take the first nap a little earlier, simply because it's considered to be an extension of the nighttime sleep. The second nap usually happens around noon or early afternoon. The third nap happens late afternoon or early evening. And babies who are on a 4 nap schedule will do a nap a little later in the evening, but this almost always is a cat nap, which is maybe 30 to 40 minutes or less than 40 minutes. So nap consolidation happens, and that's when we see a lot of consistency. Now, what also happens is that we see some turbulence anywhere between 6 to 10 months of age and 12 to 18 months of age, and we often confuse this to either be a regression or teething or colic or so many things. But in most cases, it's only a nap transition that happens, right? Anywhere between 6 to 10 months of age, your baby basically drops from 3 to 2 naps, and this depends on the readiness of each baby, and it varies with each one. And between 12 to 18 months of age, they transition from 2 naps to 1 nap. Now, how do you know, or how do you spot that it is your baby, or if your baby is trying to tell you that they're ready to drop a nap and not confuse it with anything else? So there are 4 simple things, right? So as you can see, first thing is they will suddenly start waking up multiple times at night. Then you will see resistance towards the last nap. So if your baby is on a 3 nap schedule, then they will show resistance towards the third nap. And if they're on a 2 nap schedule, they'll show resistance towards the second nap. Third, if your baby has always been sleeping well and sleeps within, 15 to 20 minutes, but now is suddenly taking 45 minutes to 1 hour, then that could also be a sign. The third thing is, and the fourth thing is, some babies often refuse naps altogether. Now, if you see the common thread between all of these 4 signs, right? The common thread is that they have difficulty in sleeping, or they take longer to sleep, or they refuse to sleep altogether. The common reason for this is that most of their sleep requirements are met during the daytime itself, which means they're not tired enough, or they don't have sleep pressure to sleep at night. So even if they sleep at night, they keep waking up because their rest requirements are met, right? So one way to understand that your baby is ready to drop a nap is that if you see any of these signs, and what's most important is that these signs usually persist for 1 to 2 weeks. If they're ready to drop a nap, they will consistently have all of these signs. So if these signs are just there for 2 or 3 days and then they automatically settle, then it means that they're not ready to drop a nap. So one of the biggest things that you have to keep in mind is that these signs will be consistent. So until you transition them or help them transition to either 2 naps or 1 nap, these signs will continue to be there. So that is why naps play a super important role with respect to your nighttime sleep. Now, how do we ensure that your baby is getting enough rest either during the day or in a 24-hour period or at night? One best way to do is to ensure that you get your hands on a chart like this, which I'll be more than happy to share with all of you post this presentation. This will help you ensure that you follow age-appropriate wake windows Now, what are wake windows? Wake windows are basically are the time frame where your baby can stay awake without getting tired, right? So this wake window differs with each age group. So as you can see, between where the first 3 months, it's less than 1 hour, 1.5 hours, and as they grow, their ability to stay awake for longer or their ability to stay awake also increases with age. So when you have a metric like this, you will ensure not only that your baby is not overtired, you will also have an idea about what their nap duration should look like, or how many naps do they have to do, how many hours of sleep do they require at night, and all of those things. So this will give you a good guidance on what your baby's sleep is like, or where the alterations have to be made. But having said that, it's also important to remember that every baby is different, and this is only a chart that gives you an idea, and all babies might not exactly follow under the time or the duration given in this chart. So in addition to this chart, it's also important to take cues from your baby and understand what your baby's requirements are, and that will give you a better idea with respect to sleep, whether it's daytime sleep or it is nighttime sleep, right? So that's what it is with respect to naps. Now, the third topic that we're going to be talking about is basically sleep disruptors. Now, what are sleep disruptors? Sleep disruptors are multiple factors, whether it is your, external noise, whether it is a sleep environment, or whether it is a condition of the baby, whatever it is. Basically, these are external factors or internal factors that have the ability to affect sleep. So in an age group, or from babies from, I think, babies from 0 to 24 months of age, or sometimes even up to the age of 3 years, are affected by these sleep disruptors, right? So at different points in time, there are different sleep disruptors that affect them. But let's start with the most infamous sleep disruptor, which I'm sure you have all been through at least once, which are regressions. Now, regressions is a huge part of your baby's life, right? Whether it is, whether it is coming at 4 months, or whether it's at 8 months, or whether it's at 10 months, regression is something that we all experience at least once. Unless you're lucky, then you don't experience it at all. But the regression can also be a very testing time, because that's when all the routine goes out of the window, your consistency goes out of the window, your well sleeping baby suddenly forgets all their good sleep habits, and you often don't know what to do. But what will help is understanding what a regression is, and why this regression is caused, or what are the reasons for it. So regressions are nothing but certain setbacks in sleep, or certain setbacks in sleep habits, because your baby is going through a developmental or a cognitive milestone. Now, what are these developmental or cognitive milestones? These are certain milestones that your baby reaches at certain points in time. Imagine this. It's like your baby learning a huge skill, right? So when you are trying to learn a big skill, your brain tries to focus only on that skill, and everything else takes a backseat. Now, that is what happens during a regression. It usually takes the baby anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks, or 4 to 6 weeks, to learn and master this skill. So up until your baby is completely comfortable with the skill that they're learning, or the milestone that they're reaching, there will be setbacks to sleep. Now, let's look at when regressions usually occur. So there are 5 major age groups when regressions occur, right? So the first one is the infamous 4th month regression. But if you look here, I've said it's 4 to 6 months. Now, why is it that the 4th month regression comes somewhere at 6 months? See, if you take my kid, she had her 4th month regression somewhere in the 6th month. Now, if you see, all of these points here are linked to a certain milestone, right? Whether it's developmental or cognitive. So between 4 to 6 months, what is the milestone that your baby goes through? They basically learn to roll over and roll back. Now, since each baby is different, right? Some babies start rolling over, or attempt to roll over somewhere between 4 months or 5 months, and some babies even at 6. So once when they start trying to develop this milestone, or start trying to achieve this milestone, is when you will see that regressions usually, is when you will see that regressions occur, right? So these have got to do with your milestones that they're trying to achieve. So between 4 to 6 months of age is when they're trying to roll over, or they're trying to roll back. Now, between 8 to 10 months of age, the milestone that they're trying to reach is they learn to crawl. Now, this is a very labor-intensive process because so far until 8 months of age or 7 months of age, your baby is usually on their back or they have just learned to sit up. Now, going on all of their limbs, getting all of their body weight, and learning to crawl takes a lot of time and effort for them. And this usually affects sleep the most because now not only are they going to move, but they're also going to have to decide where to move. So it is a combination of not just a physical, development, but also cognitive development of being able to decide where they want to go, right? So somewhere between 8 to 10 months, your baby is learning to sit up, your baby is learning to crawl, and they're also deciding where to go or, how to reach a particular point. Now, that's what happens between 8 to 10 months of age. Then moving on to 12 to 14 months of age. Now, what happens at 12 to 14 months of age? At 12 to 14 months of age, as we all know, our babies are either pulling up to stand, some babies even take their first steps. Now, this 12 to 14 months of age is a little tricky because it's a combination of both a physical and a cognitive milestone. The physical milestone is them learning to either walk or pulling up to stand. And the cognitive milestone is when you will start seeing the beginning of speech development. So your baby will start babbling a lot more at this age, right? So this also causes regressions. That's what happens between 12 to 14 months of age. What happens at 18 months of age? Considering that we've covered rolling over, we've covered standing, sitting, crawling, what is it? And walking, what is it that could happen at 18 months? Simple, right? So they learn to do everything together. Now they're not only walking, they're running, they're climbing, and their speech development also happens at this point. Now you will see your baby that was babbling at around 12 to 14 months can now almost say 30 to 40 words, right? They can communicate what they want. So this is again very similar to your 12 to 14 months, but this is at a higher level. So now you see the kid that was just walking is now climbing on the sofa, is climbing on the table. So they're using all their effort to lift their body weight, right? But another thing also that we have to keep in mind is that it's usually the first skill that takes the longest for the baby to learn, which is why the 4th month regression is almost always very long compared to all the other regressions. The regressions between, 8 to 10 months or 12 to 14 months and 18 months are usually only, 3 to 4 weeks. But then again, every baby is different. So there is also a very good chance that this could be a little longer than 3 to 4 weeks. So now at 18 months, you have your baby who is practically doing everything, who has become a toddler, is affected by this regression because they simply are everywhere all at once and doing everything. So that's what happens at 18 months. Now, just when you think that they've learned everything, there are very few people that go through a 24-month regression. Now, what happens at 24 months? There are two things that happen, right? One is that you will see your baby is a toddler the minute they're 1.5 years old, but they have become a full-blown toddler when they're at 24 months, right? So they have their own personality. There is a shape, they have their own personality. They're shaping their own opinions. So that's what happens at 24 months. And a very important cognitive milestone they hit at 24 months is countable. Now, what is countable? You will see that your baby that was a very calm, sweet, nice baby who's always listening to you is suddenly throwing tantrums, out of the blue, right at the 2-month mark, or as we all call terrible twos. Now, that is because of the development of a very, very important cognitive milestone called countable. Now, this is basically where the baby learns that they have choice. They can choose what they want to do and they can say yes or no to whatever it is that we're offering to them. Now, through this entire age of 24 to 36 months, they learn not only that they can say no, but they also learn that they can tell your parent or propose what it is that they want to do and ensure they get it, provided they push hard enough. So that is a huge cognitive development which happens at 24 months of age. And when this happens, when the baby is basically learning that they can argue, their sleep tends to get affected. Now, having said all of this, there is also some, discussion about is regression a real thing? Is it a myth? Do all babies experience it? Why is it that my baby is going through a regression and then, my neighbor's baby is perfectly fine? Now, let's think about it this way, right? Now, since we spoke about how regressions are all connected to your cognitive or developmental milestones, it is not possible that just your baby is going through it and another baby is not. Because at the end of the day, if you look at babies, all babies roll over. All babies eventually start crawling, eventually start walking, talking, and develop countable. So why is it that it affects only your baby? And why is it that it's not affecting your neighbor's baby or friend's baby? Now, the only reason for that is the sleep habits make a huge difference, right? So if your neighbor's baby is not going through a regressional phase like you are, it's probably because they have sleep habits which are very different and which are sustainable, which most importantly do not have an external dependency. This is where it's very important to talk about sleep associations. Now, what are sleep associations? Sleep associations are basically certain aids or certain crutches that we use to help fall asleep. When I say we, because sleep associations, when we say, we often think about rocking or feeding or patting and we associate to a baby. But let's pause a little bit there and look at ourselves as adults, right? So how many of us pick up our phone and scroll on our phone before we go to sleep? Now we do that day in and day out. And some of us can't even sleep, without looking at our phone. We just need that 5 minutes of, me time or whatever it is. It looks different for different people. But what we need to understand is that we all have some association that we have with respect to sleep. So similarly, babies also have an association. And these are certain prerequisites that we need to go to sleep. Now, this is what is the difference between, your baby that is going through a regression and your neighbor's kid that is probably not. Now, that is because your neighbor's kid or any other kid that doesn't supposedly experience a regression does not have any sleep association, or at least let me put it this way, that does not have a sleep association that has to come from an external source. Like, for example, your neighbor's kid probably sleeps with white noise, or your neighbor's kid probably sleeps listening to nature sounds, or they sleep holding their favorite toy, their favorite blanket or something. So if you notice, none of this require the parent or the caregiver to come and give them the blanket or to turn on and off the white noise. Those are things that consistently stay with them through the night. So even if they come to brief periods of wakefulness, they see that they have their requirement. And then, just a second. Okay. They see that they have this with them and then they happily go back to sleep. I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to pause for a second because I think I have to charge my laptop. Sorry.
Sure, no worries. Meanwhile, please share your questions in the chat. Right, I can see 2-3 questions, but if you have any type of question, just mention it in the chat, and we'll take a few in some time, and later, after 11:45, 11:50. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So yeah, like she said, if you have any interesting, because I'm sure we all have questions with respect to regressions or anecdotes to share or whatever it is, because I know I do. It's in fact what got me into studying pediatric sleep, because I had a terrible time. But yeah, anyway, coming back to this, right? So the only point of difference is probably because your neighbor's baby or any baby that doesn't go through a regression does not have an external sleep association. But if your baby, like mine, was used to, being rocked to sleep or fed to sleep or patted to sleep, every time they come to a state of wakefulness, they're going to need their mother or their father or whoever it is to do that all over again to help them fall asleep. So that's what happens with regressions. But while I know it can be a very scary or very testing time to go through, there are a few things that we can do to ensure that, we can handle it relatively easily, than the other way. So this is a very simple guide to survive it. I know it's easier said than done, but trust me, this does have an effect. So the 4 simple things that you have to do is, 1, stick to the routine as much as possible, because at a time when your baby is trying to learn something or going through something difficult or new for them, it's important that they have predictability in their day-to-day habits, in their routine. So every time they know what's coming next, it helps them adjust to the next step, right? So try to stick to the routine as much as possible. And I know it might be very hard, but try not to introduce a new association or a habit that requires an external involvement like a parent or a caregiver or whatever it is. It can be very hard because at that time you just want to do whatever works. So we are almost always, trying to adopt any technique that will just, make it better or make the multiple waking stop. But that's really going to come and haunt us at the later stage once they've passed the regression. So do not introduce a new association or a habit, or at least do not introduce a new association that is not sustainable. So if you cannot do it for the rest of the time or for the rest of the months, then I would recommend do not introduce it. Third thing is stay flexible. Now I know it seems contradictory because I first said stick to the routine. Now I'm saying stay flexible. But what happens is we all know regression is a very testing time, right? So in addition to multiple wake ups and your babies being harder to settle, also sometimes babies also refuse naps altogether. And in that case, I would recommend staying flexible, because try for 20 minutes. If your baby is not sleeping or if your baby is unable to sleep, then I would say let the nap pass and just give them an earlier bedtime, right? Because just as it is hard for you when your baby isn't sleeping, it's also hard for them to stay awake when they actually want to sleep. So I would also recommend stay flexible, just offer an earlier bedtime or offer an earlier nap time if they've skipped a nap. And the last and the most important thing is make sure it is only a regression and not anything else, right? Now, because of the timings of the regression, if you notice, you can have a regression anywhere between the fourth month to 2 years. It's also a time when your baby goes through a lot of other things. Like, for example, that's when they're teething. Babies go through colic. Babies go through, so many other things at that point. So one of the first things that we have to ensure that it is only a regression. And how do we ensure that it is only a regression? By understanding what the other sleep disruptors could be. So let's get into that a little bit now. And right after that, we could probably do 2 or 3 questions. Now, these are your other factors that affect sleep, right? So colic. Colic is something you will notice in your babies anywhere between 0 to 6 months, while most babies sort of adjust to digestion anywhere between 5-6 months. It could persist for about 6 months, and for some babies, even 6 to 8 months, because once you introduce them to solids, then also they could be affected a little bit by colic. So that could be a sleep disruptor. Another thing is teething. So anywhere between, I think, 7 months to 12 months, we'll see your baby will be ready to sprout their first teeth, and the first teeth is always the hardest, and that could cause a lot of discomfort. It could cause a lot of pain. And at this time, you'll see that your baby, wakes up multiple times at night or is being extremely clingy. So that could also be a factor that affects your sleep. So it's important to ensure that the multiple wake ups or the resistance to sleep is not because of things like this. And another thing that all babies go through is separation anxiety. That can happen anytime from 8 months, and sometimes, and they come and go in phases, right? So it could be anytime from 8 months to the age of 2 years. And the other thing is sleep associations, which we already covered. So if your baby is in the habit of either being rocked to sleep or fed to sleep, there is a very good chance that they keep waking up after each cycle is completed, needing the same thing to go back to sleep. So a lot of wake ups or disturbed sleep could also be because of sleep associations. But the only thing you will have to note is that sleep associations will not lead to your baby resisting a nap or refusing a nap altogether. So it's important to look at all the other factors together. Next thing is significant changes. So if you have a baby and you're expecting another one, and suddenly you have a little one in the house, or if your baby has moved preschools, or if you've moved cities or countries, these are significant changes that could also affect sleep, because your baby is in a new environment, the routine is new, the place is new, right? So all of these things could also affect their sleep. And sickness. So this, as we all know, when your baby is sick, or just like adults, when we're sick, we also have trouble falling asleep and staying asleep. That could also be a reason. And finally, hunger. If your baby's calorific requirements are not adequately met during the day, then there is a very good chance that they will keep waking up to eat at night. However, this is restricted by age, right? So hunger is something that you can verify with your pediatrician based on how much you're feeding your baby or at what frequency. So this is something your pediatrician will be able to help you with. So I think with respect to factors affecting sleep and sleep disruptors, this is all there is. But like Priyadarshita said, we could quickly do one or two questions before we move on to the last two topics.
Great. So I'm just going through the chat, right? Let me address the question which has been asked the most, which is, which is the first question which was sent. That is, my baby is 6.5 month old. She will sleep only if I breastfeed her, even though I had fed her with milk or solid food 30 minutes ago. So how to change that? How to change the breastfeeding association with sleep?
Okay, this is a great question and a very common question. So the first thing to understand is babies don't feed only because of hunger, right? Now imagine this, your baby has been in your womb for 9 months. They've come out to a completely new place. The only person that they know is you, right? So breastfeeding is associated a lot to do with comfort as well. So to answer your question, if even though you have fed your baby and maybe your baby is full, she continues to feed to go to sleep because one, she wants that comfort. She wants her mother to be next to her, which is a very normal thing. How to change that, right? So there are very small, simple things that you can do to change that, and you don't have to stop breastfeeding your baby. You can continue to happily breastfeed your baby, but also get some relief. Is one, understand why she feels the need to breastfeed. Is it because you are away from her for a very long time? See, because at 6 months of age, your baby cannot hold on to you and say, don't go anywhere, stay here, right? So their way of doing it is to latch and just continue to stay latched. So understand if it is because they want you to be around a lot more. If that's the case, you can start spending a lot more time with them. In fact, a lot of skin to skin will help. That is one thing you can do. Second, if there is an association of feeding to sleep, then what you could do is make a very small tweak. And if your bedtime routine looks something like bath, storybook, and feed, I would suggest that do the feeding first. Feed them, preferably not in their sleeping space. Do it outside. So, say for instance, you feed them in the hall or the dining room, something like that, and then take them to the bedroom. So you're indirectly signaling to them that the bedroom is only a place to sleep. It is not a place to eat. So moving up the feeding to the beginning of the routine than to the end of the routine will also help you see a huge difference if it's an association that you are trying to break. So yeah, that's one way. Yeah, so I think we can go to the next question.
Yeah. So the next question.
Nidra, sorry to interrupt. Like,
Yeah.
I follow-up question on the same question.
Oh,
So my baby latches to her mom continuously all through the night with her neck turning towards the left or right. I'm so worried. Like, how should I keep her head straight? If I separate from mom, she starts crying a lot.
so how old is your baby? Has she
10
achieved,
days.
can she hold? She's only 10 days.
Yeah.
And how your wife feeds her lying down or?
Yeah, by lying down. Because all through the night, she wants to latch to her mom.
I understand that. So again, I would recommend that you check this with your pediatrician because it's very important to start feeding your baby in the lying down position only when they can hold their head up straight. So
Okay.
I would recommend you check this with your pediatrician. I will not be able to advise on whether it is safe for the neck or not. So that is something your pediatrician will be able to do. But with respect to latching through the night, that could be because of two possible reasons. Since your baby is only 10 days old, first thing is for comfort because it's only been 10 days since they've come to this world, and the only thing that they know is their mother's smell. So they want their mother to be around for long enough. So one thing you can do is if you're putting your baby in a crib or a bed, just put around them your mom, the baby's mother's dress or a dupatta or a pant or whatever it is, something that smells like her, because at 10 days of age, their vision is not like our vision. It's very blurry. They can see very minimal things. So their senses are heightened. The sense of smell is heightened, and they associate the smell of the mother to the mother being around. So you could try that. That is one
Okay.
thing. And another reason why your baby could be latching on through the night, it could also be a phase of cluster feeding. Now, cluster feeding is when your baby prolonged attaches or latches onto the mother for a prolonged period of time. This is a very biologically normal thing. This by in itself will stop after a few days. If it doesn't stop after a few days, you know it's not cluster feeding. Cluster feeding is basically the baby signaling to the mother or a very biological way for us to communicate or the baby to communicate to the body, mother's body to produce more milk because as the baby grows, the milk requirements increase and that cannot happen overnight, right? So the baby keeps imitating a suckling action. So it keeps sending a message to the mother's body that my intake is about to increase, produce more milk. So it could also be because of cluster feeding.
Okay.
It could be one of these two reasons. But with respect to supporting the neck, I would strongly recommend please check with your pediatrician before you opt the lying down and the feeding method at
Okay.
10 days of age.
Sure, Nidra. Thanks so much for your
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah. So guys, just with the interest of time, right? It's already 11:43. I can see that there are a lot of questions. So, Aditi, can we just finish the presentation first, right? And then go
Yes.
through all the questions in one go at the end?
Yeah, done. We could do that. We have the last two topics to touch upon. So let's go ahead and finish those. Okay, I'm again sharing my screen. So if everybody can see it.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Um,
visible.
Okay, great. So now that we've spoken about sleep disruptors and regressions, how to overcome them, let's talk about that one thing that we are all often told, a solid bedtime routine, consistent bedtime routine is what is going to change the game for you. And if it's ever gotten you wondering that I have a bedtime routine, but my baby still doesn't sleep well, it's happened to me. But there is a very small technicality that you have to understand with respect to a solid bedtime routine, right? So it is understanding who is the bedtime routine for. So when we devise a routine, we take the very simple route. What we do is we do, a bath, we do a book, and we feed, and we expect our baby to drift off into the night. Now, think about this from even your perspective, right? Is this enjoyable for you? If you took a bath and if you, read a book, do you drift off into sleep? No, there's always one other thing that you do. Is either you look at your phone or I don't know, you have like your chamomile tea, whatever it is. So there is always that one thing we do that makes it enjoyable for us, right? So that is a technicality here. I would suggest that find that one thing that your baby truly enjoys and incorporate that into the routine. So when you incorporate that into the routine, it does two things. One, your baby looks forward to bedtime because they're going to do something they really, really love. And two, they voluntarily approach bedtime. Now, what also happens is now this is the technicality that we have to crack with respect to understanding what should be that fun activity. We'll talk a little bit more about that, right? So when I say introduce a fun activity, you don't have to, do away with the bath or the reading. The bath and the reading can very much be a part of the routine. In fact, the more elements your bedtime routine has, the better it is because on days when you have to miss out, one or two elements of your routine, you still have a few more to go. Now, why this is important to have at least 2-3 elements, a minimum of 2-3 elements in your routine is because these elements signal to your baby that it is time to sleep. So say, for instance, you have a bath, it is one signal, one cue that, okay, it's time for me to sleep. If you read the book, that cue becomes stronger. Now the baby knows that, okay, now I've been bathed, I'm being read to, which means next is definitely sleep. Now, if you have 2-3 other things, even if one or two are not present, the baby still has enough cues to understand that it is time to sleep. And in addition to that, a lot of these external cues also help on a bodily level to kind of tell the body that it is time to relax, right? So I would suggest it incorporate a fun activity or a hobby that they really enjoy into the routine that will help them, that will make them look forward to the routine rather than run away from it. If your baby is younger than 18 months, they're probably not going to run away. But the minute they learn to run, they're definitely going to run away from bedtime or the bedroom. Or, it's also a time when like literally every other room in the house looks more fun than their crib or the bedroom, right? So let's make the bedroom a fun place for them and keep it consistent because like I already said, when you give them predictability, when the baby knows what's coming next, it helps the body to adjust and move them from a state of awareness to a state of rest. It also helps with signaling the body. Now, how do we devise this routine? It's simple. We all know our baby is the best. We all have that gut feeling about our baby. So trust that. Keep it simple to the extent that the baby can say what it is or can point to what it is. It is a book, it is a bath, it is their pajamas, whatever it is. Keep it simple, keep it predictable. Most importantly, keep it enjoyable. While also determining these activities, there are two things that we have to take into consideration. One is ensure that this fun hobby that or the fun activity that you're incorporating is calming and it is not a stimulating one. So, for instance, don't bring in a toy that makes noise. Like don't bring in a xylophone or something like that. Try something a little different. Maybe try sock puppets. Something that is stimulating, something that non-stimulating, something that is calming. And second is ensure it's dynamic. Now, what do you mean? What do I mean when I say dynamic? Now, our baby grows with age. Now, again, every time I talk about a baby, I keep drawing a parallel to an adult because when we were young, we had a different thing we like to do. As we grew up, we found different things we like to do, right? So, same for your baby. So, maybe at 4 months of age, they like their black and white flashcards. At 6 months of age, they like pop-up books. At maybe 12 months of age, they like a sock puppet, different things. So what you could do is you could keep changing this activity for them based on their age and based on what they enjoy more, so that bedtime is not the same thing. So while you have constant elements like your bath and your reading, always keep this fun activity dynamic so that they keep looking forward to it. That is one. And one other thing that is super important or something that really worked for me personally is to start the routine during the wake window. So one thing that we all do is we wait for the wake window to end, where we say that, okay, you know what, now the wake window is over, let me take my baby to bed. That's where we make a tiny mistake, because you're supposed to take your baby a little before your wake window ends. So say, for instance, your bedtime routine is 20 to 30 minutes, take your baby in the last 20 or 30 minutes of their wake window, because just as the routine ends, so does their wake window. So this will ensure that your baby is not overtired or cranky or restless, right? So it also helps them to drift off into sleep in a more easy way. So that is with respect to devising a bedtime routine that works for your child, because no bedtime routine that we see online can just be taken and used exactly for your kid, because you know what's best for your kid. You know what your kid enjoys the most. So find that and incorporate it. And as kids grow, once they're toddlers, and especially when they develop countable, it will also really help to make them a part of devising this bedtime routine. You can ask them what is it that they want to do before going to bed, or what are the things that they would like to have a part of their routine, which will get them more involved in the process and make them. So the simple hack is to get them to like the routine and enjoy it and look forward to it than anything else. So that is what it is. And the last part, and the part that we all fear, right? So now a lot of us probably have a routine and we're scared to go out to dinner. We're scared to go on a vacation. We're scared to take that road trip because, oh my God, what happens to the routine? What happens if there is a deviation? I'm going to start from scratch. But that is not true. Deviations are very important. In fact, deviations are something that we have to deal with. There are three simple things with respect to deviations, right? So the first thing is ensure that your number of consistent days are more than the number of your deviation days. Because if you've stayed consistent longer than for your deviations, your baby is still going to know what the cues are. Second, allowing flexibility helps strengthen and reevaluate the routine. Now, when you allow flexibility, because sometimes what we do is force of habit, we keep doing the same thing over and over and over again every day. We don't really know if there is any scope for changing or if there's any scope for improvement. But on a day or two of deviation, say for instance, you take your baby on a vacation and in between, say lunch or dinner, they fall asleep. You know that now your baby has developed the ability to fall asleep by themselves without any of the cues. So allowing flexibility sometimes helps reevaluate the routine you have for them. But deviations are absolutely okay, especially for parents like us in India, where we do multiple things, right? We're not just taking care of our kids, we're working, we're cooking, we're doing 101 things. Deviations are a part and parcel of our life. So it's very important to acknowledge it and, make it a part of our, routine and not fear it. So deviations are absolutely okay as long as they're outnumbered by the number of consistent days. Having said that, we come to the very last part of this presentation. The final thoughts would really just be that baby sleep can be hard, it can be overwhelming, it can be testing, really. Having a baby is honestly the most testing but rewarding experience that all of us have gone through. But what helped me is to understand a little bit more about why something happens. Because I truly feel when you understand the why of a situation, you approach it very differently. You set yourself up for success when you know why something happens, because your solution is more tailor-made, it is more specific. So that's what we try to do at NIDRA, try to help all parents understand why something happens. And so, we can tackle it head on. So that's with all of this. But before I wrap up, I have one final thing, right? So today, since we've gone through almost everything, we've gone through regressions, we've gone through sleep cycles, we've gone through sleep associations, we've gone through routines. So then doesn't that beg the question, sleep training then? If we know all of this, what is sleep training? What is it that we all talk about? Well, we talk a lot about sleep training, right? So what is sleep training? At this point, I would really like it if you could, one or two of you just, or any of you, type in the chat box and tell me what you think sleep training is. And, with that, we could open the Q&A and go on from there.
Yeah, so meanwhile, others are answering. Aditi, basically the presentation is done right from our end. So we can also share with them about, in case they
Yes.
want to do a one-on-one paid consultation with you, they can use the code IPF15. We will also
Yes.
share, NIDRA is active on Instagram. So you can just type NIDRA over there and you'll find their page and you can message them over there. We'll also share the WhatsApp number in the chat and in the mail also. When we send the recording out. So you can also personally reach out to them there, right? So yeah, so we have a response. And to make them learn from external patterns, like learn sleep, a response around sleep training, right? We have it from Aishwarya. And doing all of this consistently, getting used to it, yeah, to form a sleep routine.
Okay. So before we kick off, let me give you, what we at NIDRA think sleep training is. Sleep training is a very, very personal thing. Sleep training could look very different to each one of us. At NIDRA, we truly believe sleep training will look very different for two people who live the exact same lives. At the end of the day, it's about finding out what is the equilibrium for you. It's about finding out what you want your baby sleep to look like. It's about finding out what you want your sleep to look like. And we over here will help you achieve exactly that. Because we truly believe that when in this day of information, we have a lot of people saying that, you shouldn't feed your baby to sleep, or you shouldn't, rock your baby to sleep. But at NIDRA, we believe that if that is what works for you, if that is something you're comfortable with, if that is something that doesn't burden you, then no one should stop you from doing it. It's about you deciding what you want your baby sleep to look like. It's about you deciding what you want your sleep to look like. And that's exactly what we are going to help you do. We're going to help you get what your definition of sleep training is, and not really going by what people say it should look like at a certain age. Now, having said that, there is just one final thought that we have before we move on into our Q&A, is that in today's day and age, right, we play multiple roles. We play roles as moms, we play roles as sisters, we play roles as an employee, a husband, a wife, and so on and so forth. We do so many things. We make so many choices on a day-to-day basis. There is so much judgment attached to getting help, right? So we very, very strongly stand in the fact that there is no help, no shame in getting help. In fact, getting help makes you stronger. There's nothing wrong in making your life a little easier for you because it's already as hard as it can get with all the roles that you play. And NIDRA always stands for being a judgment-free zone, a helping hand, and somebody who will walk with you through the entire process and help build that routine or life that you want for yourself, for your family, and your baby. So, yeah, with that, I think we can just have one last thing to share. Like Priyadarshita said, you could always ping us on our Instagram page, or you can also, I will also share with you my contact. Yeah, so again, I think this is one thing I just skipped through. These are a bunch of services that support that we offer to you because each one of us is different. Whether you're a mom that wants help, whether you're a dad, whether you're the grandmom, whether you're a nanny, or whether you just want some guidance, whether you want us to do it all beginning to end, we're here for anything that you decide you want, and we're going to help you through it. So, as Priyadarshita already mentioned, we're happy to give you a flat 15% off on all our services. But also feel free to get in touch with all questions you have, any questions you have, and any help. I'm just going to put this out here. I will also share this with you all later on. But now, to the most awaited part, I'm happy to answer all your questions.
Great. So, cool. Thank you so much. So I'm just going through the questions, right? And you can let me know if you have already answered it before so that, we kind of don't repeat it. So the next question was from Devanshi, which is my baby prefers contact sleeping and breastfeeding to put him to sleep. He gets up as soon as I put him to bed. How to change it? So any other caregiver can help with the same. So is it same for the last one? Yeah.
It is, so there are, see, the thing is, there are a lot of overlaps with a lot of things with respect to baby sleep. So one of the first things I would have to ask or tell Devanshi here is that it's got to do a lot with the age of the child and the habit of the child. So first thing is, if your baby had always been in a practice of contact napping, then it becomes very common that your baby becomes unable to sleep without that contact because your baby's association is being close to you. So your baby immediately realizes when you either put him on the bed or on the crib or whatever that is. And second, because contact is a very personal thing, it's not just that your baby is sleeping with the mother, the baby sleeps with your smell, he sleeps with your touch, so many other elements which they cannot get from a different caregiver, which is why it takes a very long time for them to transition from one caregiver to another. But having said that, there is nothing that cannot be undone. It's it's a process, and it depends on what is the route you want to take. But to answer this question very simply, it's about trying to break this association that your baby wants to sleep just with you, and offering a substitute association or a substitute caregiver so that it gives you the comfort you want without compromising on the comfort your baby also wants. But yeah, it is that. That is one part of it if they're in the habit. The second part of it is a lot of if your baby has not been contact napping from the beginning of time, it could be because they're going through separation anxiety or they're going through, say, teething. These are the two reasons where your baby tends to be extremely clingy with the mother or their primary caregiver because they need additional comfort and additional support at this point of time. So if it is something new, then I would recommend you see how long it lasts. And if it persists even after a couple of weeks, then it is probably an association and not because of separation anxiety or, any other reason.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. The next question is from Sharwari around, she has shared the nap times of her baby and she is asking, whether we can slowly transition to one single nap. So if you can just go through this question and let me know if this is a question which should be personally addressed, then I'll request Sharwari to, DM these details to you because the question seems super personalized.
Yeah, I think that would be better. So the thing is, with respect to naps and anyone having questions with respect to nap transitions, like I said, there are different things that we will have to observe, starting with the daytime naps and their general routine. How is it that they sleep, and ensure rule out all the other factors. So and when each baby transitions is very, very specific to each baby. So I don't think this will have a generic answer. So I think it would be best if you could DM me and I would be more than happy to answer this privately.
Yeah. Aditi, maybe meanwhile, you can just keep your screen share on with the last
Yeah,
slide, right? So that parents can continue to, just reach out to you on WhatsApp or the
yes,
channel.
I can do that.
Sure.
I'm doing that right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Next question is that my baby gets up in midnight and needs to be fed, which takes some time. How to overcome and how to set a routine? Is this like a repeat question? Have you already
Yeah,
answered this?
so again, I will just briefly address this, right? So, like we already talked about, there could be multiple reasons as to why your baby wakes up and wants to be fed. So, it's important to understand the why of why they're waking up. So, once we figure that out, then we could help either set a routine to get over it, or if it's an association, we can help break the association. So, the ultimate answer is to understand the root cause of the wake up so that we can address the wake up.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. Next question is how to transition a co-sleeping baby to get used to a cradle or cot. Like, any thoughts around that?
Yeah. So this again would require a lot of details, like such as what is the habit, age of the baby, are you still breastfeeding the baby, and all of that. But to give a very generic answer, it is simple to transition your baby from co-sleeping to sleeping in a cradle or a cot, but you have to be prepared to allocate some time of your life, which is probably 2 to 3 weeks. Also depends on the baby's temperament and routine, but with a stage by stage, a step-by-step process, you can easily transition them. Again, co-sleeping is an association they form because you're so used to sleep. Like adults, right? We sleep on a particular side of the bed. I don't know how many of us do that, but I have a side of the bed. I have my pillow that I sleep with. So I'm sure we all have that. So just like that, your baby is also used to sleeping with you. But slowly, what you have to do is disassociate your baby from sleeping with you. So a few steps would be to first, attaching the crib to the bed, if it's not already like that, so that your baby, you don't directly go from the bed to the crib, which is afar. So you do a very step-by-step process where you attach the crib to the bed first, try like that for a few days, because your baby then knows you're still accessible even though you're not next to them, and gradually move the crib to wherever it is that your desired location is. So yeah, there are methods to do it, but the underlying fact is again to disassociate the sleeping with the sleeping with you or in your bed with you.
Got it. Thank you. Next question is by Mansi, which is her baby is 3.5 months old and doesn't sleep for more than 2 hours at a stretch at night. And during daytime, his naps are of 2 hours too. Sometimes he sleeps through the next nap continuously while feeding. So she has two questions. I wake my baby from his nap time. Like, should she wake her baby? And what should be the ideal routine around nighttime routine around baby sleep? And what time should the baby awake?
So this is a great question, right? So one of the first things we'll have to understand with respect to this is, has your baby already consolidated all his or her naps into 3 or 4 naps a day? If the baby's naps are not yet consolidated, if the naps are still baby-led, then in that case, I would suggest wait until your baby consolidates all their naps, because their biological clock or the circadian rhythm has not developed yet. And once that develops, you'll see consolidation in naps. So if your baby's naps have been consolidated into 3 or 4 naps a day, then earlier in the slide, I had shared with you a chart which tells you how long the daytime sleep should be and how long the nighttime sleep should be. Again, take this with a pinch of salt. Every baby is different. Plus or minus an hour or a few minutes is okay. It does not have to be exactly as per what's in the table. So see if the wake windows are okay, see if the naps are okay, and then you can tweak it accordingly. So if you feel that his daytime naps are longer or are beyond the requirement, then and that in turn is affecting his nighttime sleep, then I will answer your first question. It is okay to wake your baby from a nap at a certain time, but there is a very specific way to do it, and this is where the sleep cycle helps, right? So, where we went through N1 to your non-REM to your REM stage, it is always advisable to wake your baby in a very gentle manner, by simply just touching their arm or their leg or their cheek or their ear, nothing harsh, but you should do this when the baby is in the lighter stages of sleep. And you will always know when your baby is in the lighter stage of sleep. Around 3 or 3.5 months, or even up to the age of 4 months, you will see your baby smiling a lot in their sleep, or, doing different actions in their sleep, like moving their hands or legs. So you know that they're in their they're not in deep sleep, they're in their light stages of sleep. So you can wake them up if you catch them in their light stage of sleep using very gentle methods. So that is okay. And that is subject to if they get way more than required daytime sleep to the point that it is disturbing their nighttime sleep. Second, what should be the ideal nighttime routine as what time the baby should sleep and what time the baby should wake. Again, I'm going to point you to the chart. If you figure out how long they're sleeping in the day and how long they're sleeping at night, you will realize what the bedtime exactly should be. And the ideal routine I would suggest is do a basic bath, do a basic, instead of books, you can do flashcards. If you're feeding the baby, I would recommend in order to prevent any kind of association forming, do it in the beginning of the routine. And another thing that will also really help for babies, specifically in the age of 3.5 to 4 months, or any baby who hasn't consolidated their naps yet, is to give them external cues because their biological clock is not developed yet, is anytime after 5 or anytime after 6, 6:50, 6:30 in the evening when the natural light is off, put all the lights at home also on dim as far as possible, because you have to externally cue to them that it is night time, because their body has not developed to understand that yet. Help by providing external cues to them by keeping the noise level low. I know it's very hard when we live in like joint families, so even if it's not possible for the whole house, maybe in their room alone, keep the lights dim, the noise low. That would also help them with respect to forming and picking up on the routine really fast. If you want something a little more specific and a little more tailor-made to your baby, then I would recommend you to again DM me for this.
Yeah. Yeah. Next question is by Harshini around any sample routine chart.
Yeah. So I can share with, if any of you want a sample routine, then what I would request you to do is just DM me just tell me sample routine or something along with the age of your baby, and I will be able to share with you a sample routine for that particular age. Yeah, so I can do that as well.
Sure. Just DM her on Insta, please.
With the age, don't forget the age.
Yeah. Cool. Next question is by Janni, which is my 16-month-old baby was in a 1-month schedule for more than a month, but from the past few days, she is going back to 2 nap schedule, and it delays her bedtime. Like, how to handle this?
Okay, this is a great question. So this really makes you question if she was first of all ready to drop the first nap to begin with. The second nap to begin with. So I would again recommend go back to the basics and evaluate the routine when she dropped the nap. Was it completely baby-led or was it intervened by you where you noticed certain patterns and therefore helped her transition? But if it was completely dropped by her, or if she simply resisted it, then I would suggest go back and we'll see if she was firstly ready to drop the nap. If she was not ready to drop the nap, that's probably a reason as to why she's again gone back to the 2 nap schedule. That is one thing. The second thing is, so if it's delaying her bedtime, the other thing is check for total daytime sleep. She's probably doing a lot more daytime sleep than required for a 16-month age group. A kid at around 16 months usually requires only 14 hours of, anywhere between 11 to 14 hours of sleep in a 24-hour stretch. So this ideally looks like 11 hours at 10 to 11 hours at night and the remaining during the day. So if your baby is doing both naps together more than 3 or 4 hours, then the night routine gets affected. So this would actually go back to evaluating her routine to begin with. So I think that is something you will have to do with respect to your baby.
Got it. Next question is, can I introduce music in night routine, which will become an association? The kid is 1 year old.
That's a great question. Yes, music is a great thing to introduce, but just ensure that you introduce music without lyrics. Because what happens is your son is going to soon start talking, your son is going to soon start repeating a lot of words he hears. So when you introduce music with lyrics, by the time they're 16 or 18 months, they're going to start singing along and they'll get carried away in that and they don't sleep. So you can introduce, some light instrumental music. You can introduce nature songs or any song that you like. Just introduce an instrumental version of it. And if your baby sleeps with you, ensure that you like the song too, because if it becomes an association, you are going to have to sleep with it through the night. So ensure that it is enjoyable to everybody. But yeah, that otherwise there's really no issues in introducing music. Please go ahead and do it.
Great, great. Yeah, next question is newborn habits. So the parent is due in few weeks. She is asking what habits can we inculcate from day one? Should we use a crib from day one? And when is the right time to introduce it?
Okay, so honestly, with respect to the first 3 months of age, right, I would recommend take it as it comes. Nothing is hard set in the first 3 months. A lot of things are led by the baby, and it's very important that these things are led by the baby. The first, 12 weeks is also known as the fourth trimester, as we have 3 trimesters of pregnancy. The next 12 weeks are also, next 3 months are also equally crucial for both the baby and the mother. So I would suggest take it as it comes because you're going to have to feed a lot at night. So if you introduce a crib, then I would probably say that look at the feasibility of the crib. If you're going to have to get down and pick up the child every time to feed, it might be a disturbance, or it might be physically taxing for somebody who is just given birth. So I would advise to look into those factors, but otherwise there are no habits to inculcate the first 3 months. The first 3 months is entirely for you to look after yourself and look after your baby, or bringing your baby into a world where they know nothing but just you. So keeping them close to you, giving a lot of skin on skin, all of that will really help a lot because at the age of 4 or 4.5 months, when you're introducing a habit, they're more likely to embrace it more happily because they have built a really good connection with you. They're very happy, secure, and all of that. So I would suggest go with the flow, do what feels right to you, do what makes you happy, what makes you comfortable, what makes the baby happy and the baby comfortable. So that's the only advice for your fourth trimester or the next 3 months.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. Yeah, the next question is the parents' house is very near to the road where there's a lot of noise. So how can we ensure that the baby sleeps well despite the noise, right, at the night?
Okay, so this question has a two-part answer, right? So again, depending on the age of the baby, if the baby is very well aware of it is daytime and it is nighttime, I would say during naps, that is during daytime sleep, let there be noise. It's absolutely okay because it's very important for the baby to register that in the morning time or during the daytime, there is going to be a lot of noise around me. There is going to be activity around me. It is me that is taking rest. But at night, ensure that it's best to curtail noise at night because the cue that you're trying to give the baby is that everybody sleeps at night. The environment is very different at night. So at night, I would recommend not having noise. But during daytime, it's okay to have noise. It's only a matter of practice. Your baby, once they're in a state of deep sleep and they get accustomed to this noise, it's not going to affect them in the long run. So it will probably take them a few weeks to understand that this noise is going to be there during my daytime naps and it will not bother them after a few weeks. So it's okay. Because if you take a very practical example, babies do like 3 or 4 naps a day in the first 4 or 5 months, right? And that's when they're cooking. So your cooker is going to go off, you're going to run your mixer grinder and all of that. So it's very important to integrate what we do on a daily basis, into your baby's schedule so that it doesn't pose a problem. So ensure that the sleep habits that you're inculcating are sustainable because you're never going to not use the cooker during the daytime, right? So I would suggest keep it sustainable and allow the noise as long as it's during the day. Yeah, you can try to minimize the noise if it's like too loud, like too much honking or something that even an adult can't sleep in that particular environment. Try to minimize it by maybe shutting your doors or something, but it does not have to be pin drop silence. Some noise is recommended in daytime sleep.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. Next question was around expecting mom tips, which we have already kind of shared. Another one is sometimes even after feeding for enough time in a day, my baby doesn't sleep. Like I think the baby is 9 months old. So any thoughts around this, or is this like a real question? Yeah.
No, this is actually a great question because eating and sleeping, we've often interlinked it. There's often a notion that, oh, a baby who is full will go to sleep. That's not really the case. It's not true in all cases. Yes, eating might lead the baby to sleeping, but it doesn't mean every time the baby eats, the baby will sleep. The baby may not be sleeping for a lot of reasons. It could probably again be because of any of the disruptors we spoke about, but just because you fed the baby a lot, and the fact that the baby is not drifting off into sleep are not really related. In 99.99% of the cases, it's always a different reason that your baby doesn't sleep after feeding.
Got it. Yeah, so the next question is, my 3-month-old baby sleeps sucking her thumb. Soon this habit may fade, but what else can we give her, for sleep association? Also, she takes almost 20 to 25 minutes to fall asleep on her own and keeps making sounds. So should the parent just pick her up or just wait every time? And at night, she sleeps for 6 to 7 hours. Should I let her sleep or wake her up for the feed?
So, 3 months phase with respect to sucking her thumb, they go through a mouthing phase where they try to put their fist in their mouth. They try to put a lot of things in their mouth because now they're also learning motor skills, right? The fact they can move their arms. You'll also catch your baby often looking at their feet. So it could be really fun to put on like nice socks and get them observing that. But okay, independent of that, they're just figuring out that they can move their limbs, and the mouthing is very common. Um, uh, but if you personally have a problem with the fact that you don't want her to, fall asleep sucking her thumb, then you could always introduce a new association. It could probably be, I wouldn't suggest a blanket at the age of 3 months, but it could probably be a doll that is safe for the baby. Ensure that it doesn't have fur or tiny buttons that could come off loose. So ensure it's a safe doll that you can keep next to the baby. But another thing that I would recommend is to introduce this association once they're over the mouthing phase, because now no matter what you give, they will have a tendency to take it to their mouth, better their thumb than anything else. So I would suggest wait that out. Second, it's also a really great sign that your baby falls asleep independently within 20 to 25 minutes and keeps making sounds. It's very common. They're called sleep sounds. Unless the noises that they make are cries or cries for help, which you as a mom will definitely know. It's absolutely okay to leave her be as long as she's happy, as long as she's safe and she's not in any kind of distress or discomfort. She can be left right that way. So it's a great thing. And also just to tell you, these sleep sounds continue. My baby is now 19 months and she still makes sounds in her sleep. So it's absolutely normal. It's like adults, right? We also sometimes say something in our sleep. So it's absolutely normal. There's nothing to worry about. And with respect to sleeping 6 to 7 hours a night, should I let her sleep or wake up for the feed? Again, anything to do with feeding your baby, I would strongly recommend you to get it checked with your pediatrician, because your pediatrician will be better able to help you with respect to their nutritional requirements, because it differs on a case-to-case basis. Sometimes they would recommend you to feed every 3 hours or 2 hours, or I think based on the weight of the baby and general development, they may also suggest it's okay for them to sleep for 5-6 hours. So I would recommend the feeding part for you to check with your pediatrician.
Got it. Yeah, next question is, baby is almost 4 months old. He needs to be rocked to sleep these days. Like, how can we break that association? He wakes up as soon as I put him down.
Okay. So, yes, at almost 4 months of age, while an association may have been formed, you do have an advantage, because whatever they do in the first 3 months of age, like I said, the fourth trimester, is not something that sets in them very strongly, because it literally takes them 3 months to learn thermal regulation, to learn the difference between day and night. Their sight is developing, their senses are developing. So it's basically the basics that are getting attention in their body, and things like habits or associations are very weak, no matter what the association is. So you can very easily wean them off a sleep association at this age. What you could do is I could give you a step-by-step guide again, personally, but for everybody's benefit, if your baby is just about 4 months old and the naps have been consolidated and you start seeing predictability, one thing you could do is, if he's in the habit of being rocked, you cannot stop it cold turkey. What I would suggest is rock him until he's a little drowsy but awake, like we discussed, up until the end two part, and then slowly put him on the bed. And while you're rocking, introduce something else to him. Like, for instance, maybe play white noise in the background or play some music in the background. tap him, or just gently pat him, or whatever it is. And then when he's drowsy, I would suggest put him on the bed or the crib and continue with the introduced association, which is the music or the patting. So that now your baby not has one association but two, and in the absence of one, he will continue to sleep because the other is present. So that is one way to do it, but I would suggest do it in stages. Don't stop the rocking cold turkey, because it's also a place of comfort for him. So ensure that he gets comfortable with the other association before you completely stop this one.
Okay. Yeah. Next question is, baby's 3.5-month-old needs to be fed very often at night and sometime latch continue and sleep. Is this like a repeat question?
Yeah, this is a little bit of a repeat, because babies at different points of time cluster feed, which is essentially signals they send to increase milk supply. So that could be a reason for latching. This is something you can check with your pediatrician. Again, if you feel that this is an association, then like I said, you could move the feeding to the beginning of the routine rather than the end of the routine.
Got it. Yeah. Next question is, how do we introduce a soft toy and after what age? If you have any thoughts around that.
Yeah. So see, a soft toy is best. You can introduce. Okay, let me put it this way. It will depend on what you're introducing, independent of the age. It is very, like I said, it's essential we ensure that whatever you're introducing is safe to the baby. So if it's a soft toy, it's better there is no fur, because if your baby is like between 6 months to 7 months of age, they are going to be able to pick it up and put it in their mouth. So ensure it's not heavy. Ensure it's not furry. Ensure it doesn't have those tiny buttons or eyes or something, or anything that could be a choking hazard for them. That is one. You can introduce a soft toy, and after what age, like I said, it is okay at any age. Preferably when you're starting the routine for a baby at around 4.5 months is when you can introduce a lovey. That's a good time to start. Having said that, the best way to start is by first incorporating that toy into your baby's life. For instance, let the toy can be there during all of the playtime during the day, and continuously stay with your baby through the day. And then you can slowly start associating the toy to the night, where you say that this is a toy that you sleep with, or this toy is your best friend, or whatever that is. But the best way to introduce it is to make it a part of their life first, and not just prop it up at night time.
Got it. I think similarly, can flashcards be an activity before sleep?
Yeah, flashcards. So depending on the age of your baby, it is okay. I think anywhere between 4-5 months, up to 5 months of age, you can use flashcards. It can be a great activity, but anytime after 5 months, I would recommend you to shift to picture books, because there is a lot that they can see, and their vision also develops. So it takes about, I think, around 6 to 6.5 months of age, and by the time 7 months of age, they can see as clearly as we do. So at that time, flashcards might not, the high contrast might not be required. You can shift to storybooks, but up until 5-6 months, 4.5-5 months, you can use flashcards.
Got it. The next question is, should babies get 10 to 12 night sleep as shown in the chart? And what happens if they don't get enough sleep?
This is a great question, right? So even as adults, we're supposed to get 8 hours of sleep a night. How many of us get 8 hours of sleep? Okay. So it's okay, like I said, take it with a pinch of salt. Even though they get 10 to 12 hours of sleep, the point that we should take into consideration is that they don't have to get 10 to 12 hours of uninterrupted sleep. Even if they sleep 10 hours or 12 hours with some wake-ups, it's absolutely normal, because babies do need support to go to sleep. Babies do have associations sometimes, or they may wake up due to a discomfort. So even though they may need 10 to 12 hours a night, please don't misunderstand this to be uninterrupted sleep. It's very common for them to wake up for whatever the requirement is. And second, what happens if they don't get enough sleep? Again, this is something you have to take on a day-to-day basis, because mostly kids, biologically, what happens is, if they feel that the sleep was not restful for them, they will tend to take an earlier nap in the day the minute they wake up, and they will tend to also do a longer nap. So one thing I would recommend for you to ensure that your baby is getting enough sleep is, instead of looking at the sleep requirements in isolation, instead of looking at the nap time sleep and the nighttime sleep, I would request you to look at the sleep requirement in a 24 hour window and see that they meet that, and that also plus or minus an hour is absolutely okay, because babies have a way of self-correcting their naps, because if they're underslept, they tend to make it up in the next nap that they take. But if you feel that your baby is consistently getting lesser sleep than required, then in that case, we might have to address this differently and see what is the reason as to why they're consistently sleeping less.
Got it. Got it. Next question is, any recommendation on books to read around this, if you have any, which you can share quickly?
Yeah, so I think the Bible for all pediatric sleep consultants or anybody else that wants to know anything about sleep basically is this book called Sleeping Like a Baby. It's been written by Himani Dalmia and Neha Bhatt. That basically touches upon all of these topics that we covered. So that would be a great start. And yeah, I think that would be a great start, and that essentially could be the guidebook for the entire time from 0 to 3 years for your baby's sleep. So that would be really helpful.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. Next question is, how to ensure parents get enough sleep with the baby?
That's a great question, actually. So isn't that you know so again, all of this goes back to habits, right? Your parents can only get enough sleep if the baby has a good sleep routine. So I would say if you focus on your baby's sleep, automatically parents will get enough sleep. So if your baby is not waking up times at night, then the parent automatically gets enough sleep. The ways to ensure it is everything basically we discussed in the presentation, is ensure you follow wake windows, ensure that they're not overtired, ensure you have a routine, ensure you have enough cues that signals to the baby that it's time to sleep or it's time to rest. But yeah, that's pretty much the entire presentation. So this is how we ensure that parents can also get enough rest. Having said that, you're always going to have some times when the parents will not get rest, like when your baby is going through an illness or teething or regressions. But at that point, I would suggest please get some help and get the rest that you need. But apart from minor setbacks like this, if your baby sleeps fine, you're going to sleep fine.
Great. Yeah. Next question is, how to break the drink to sleep association after having a good dinner after less than 2 hours requires a good quantity of milk before sleeping. Like, is this a repeat question?
Yeah, this is a
Yeah.
repeat. Again, just move it up to the beginning of the routine and we should be good to go.
Great. Another one is, we are comparatively more social obligations to attend. My baby is 4.5 month old. How should we cope up with his sleep and still attend all the functions?
Yeah. So this is like a very, I think it's a great thing that you brought this up, right? Because in India, we are very like social beings. We have weddings to attend to. We have so many things to go to, and that's pretty much why I touched upon disruptions. So the two things that I would recommend for you is that if you're extremely social and you have to be out more often than in, if that's the case for you, one thing I would strongly recommend is that probably until your baby, since your baby is just 4.5 months old and they're like just beginning to understand routine and predictability, it's important they first have more consistent days before deviations. So if there is somebody else, or if you and your partner or the caregiver can take turns and make appearances at function, that would be ideal. But otherwise, if that is not possible, if you have to take your baby with you, I would recommend, depending on the time of the baby, try to get your baby to nap no matter where they are, because at almost 4.5 months of age, what they do is they go through their sleep cycle really fast, which means within 20 minutes they're already in deep sleep. So they can, if you have a carry cot or a car seat that you use, they could happily just sleep in the car seat. Although don't leave the car seat in the car, take it with you wherever you are. But ensure that they get their rest. But the ideal situation would be at least until they're more consistent and predictable with the routine to maybe take turns. But yeah, but I think the rule of thumb would be that ensure he takes his nap, regardless of where it is. It's better to take the nap than skip it. So in that case, it's okay. The environment is okay, but ensure that he sleeps. So I think that's what I would say.
Got it. Next question is, my baby needs to be rocked to make her sleep. I want to break this association because while traveling or going out, we need to carry a bed sheet to rock her.
So your baby's rock like this, like a Jula, with like by you and your husband. Okay. Again, it is an association, any association. I'll give you a generic answer for this, that anybody has anything to do with wanting to break an association. I want to say two things. One, break the association only if it is inconvenient to you and inconvenient to your baby. Please do not break the association because somebody is saying so. And I'm saying this because this most often happens with feeding, because a lot of people say stop feeding your baby, they'll start feeding through the night. That's not true. So only if it is uncomfortable for you, go ahead and break the association. Now, with respect to any association, whether it is rocking or feeding, I think feeding, you can just move it up to the beginning of the routine. With respect to rocking, what you could do is, like I already told you, you have to phase it out in stages. You cannot quit cold turkey. So I would first recommend that you introduce an alternate association or an alternate form of comfort for her. Maybe that could be music, or maybe that could be like patting her or singing to her, whatever it is that is comfortable to you, your husband, and your baby. Introduce that first, and once your baby gets comfortable with the alternative association, you can slowly phase this out. But this will not happen overnight. It will take a few weeks, but it will definitely happen. The only way to do it is to stay consistent. So in the beginning weeks, I would suggest do a combination of rocking while you start off the routine, or you start off by rocking the baby, but then you introduce, say, for example, a toy. Then you introduce that as well. So you rock her with the toy and then slowly transition it to just the toy. But the rule of thumb would be is always introduce an alternative association, get your baby comfortable with that association, and then phase out the old association.
Got it. Yeah, the next question is, baby sleeps on her stomach the whole night, around 4 hours at stretch. Sometimes she opens her mouth and breathe. If I turn her over, and then she again rolls on her stomach. So, yeah, any thoughts around this?
Okay, so this again will largely depend on the age of your baby. Sleeping on the stomach is usually only safe if your baby has learned to not only roll over but roll back. So if your baby does not know how to roll back and come on their get back on their back, this could be a potential hazard. So please take into consideration the age of your baby. But once your baby has learned to roll and roll back, there are just two things: do not swaddle your baby to prevent any kind of suffocation. Let them, so the minute they start rolling and rolling back, stop swaddling your baby, because that could be a potential hazard. And if your baby is older than, like, say, 6-7 months, and they can comfortably roll and roll back and they don't need to be swaddled anymore, it's okay to sleep on their stomach. And with respect to the breathing, breathing with her mouth open, breathing with her mouth closed, I think it should be fine. But again, when you have any doubts with respect to nutrition, breathing, and any physiological aspects of your baby, then it is always best to get it checked with your pediatrician.
Got it. Any thoughts around using pacifier for sleep?
See, again, I would go back to the point of where are you comfortable with giving your baby a pacifier? Is your baby comfortable? Because a lot of these questions about, is it okay to use a pacifier? Is it okay to use that, comes from what society tells us. So if you're okay with it, then please go ahead and use the pacifier. The only two recommendations that I have are, one is that ensure that the pacifier is associated only to sleep, which means that you should be able to remove the pacifier once they've gone back to sleep. And second, they don't use the pacifier for a prolonged period of time during day. And second, there is a very specific age where the pacifier will have to be phased out. Anytime before the age of 14 months, it's better to phase it out, because what happens is there are some studies that do say that it could impair language or speech development, because of the position your mouth is, which is also why I recommended that you should be able to remove the pacifier after they've gone to sleep, which ensures that their mouth is not in a suckling position for a prolonged period of the night. Yeah, so those are my two recommendations. It's absolutely okay to use a pacifier if you want it, as long as you ensure that it's only for sleep and it is phased out at the right time.
Got it. Next question is, what kind of books will you suggest we can read for a 7-month-old baby? Like, if you have any suggestions.
Yeah, so for 7-month-old babies, I will probably send you a DM, or I could just send on this group a little after what are the kind of books. But honestly, it can just be any books you choose. Just ensure that they're colorful and they have a lot of pictures. Because at this time, babies don't really want to listen to stories or listen to words. All they want to do is look at really big, colorful pictures of things which are mostly familiar to them. So at 7 months, they're probably familiar with like an apple or a banana, things that they eat because they've just started solid. So that will also be something that's relatable to them is what I would recommend. So just maybe an ABC book with just huge pictures, colorful pictures would really help at this age.
Noted. Next question is it necessary to always provide an alternative association to sleep for a 14-month-old?
See, I would recommend you do that because all of us have a point of comfort when it comes to sleep, right? It's always nice to have that one thing that makes us comfortable because the alternative, I would say, take a step back and try to imagine this from your baby's position. Everything everything that helps your baby sleep, like say for instance, it's being rocked to sleep, is taken away from the baby. It always helps when you have something else to rely on, right? And in the absence of that, what happens is it's not that it is necessary, but it's harder for your baby to, adapt to the change because now what is going to happen is they're going to have to deal with not having their comfort. While if you introduce an alternate substitute, they are only going to have to accept a new form of comfort. And accepting something new or something comfortable is easier than having to let go of something. And it's also easier to let go of something when they have an alternate comfort. So it's basically you giving them that cushion. But just to do a yes or no question to you, no, it's not absolutely necessary, but it might take a little longer than usual if you want to try just weaning off the association without an
Noted.
alternative.
So now we are at the last question, which is does a sleep sack help a 4-month-old sleep better?
So, I don't think a sleep sack has much to do with sleep. Again, before you put what things like a sleep sack or swaddles do is that they mimic the baby's position in the womb. So they're, very, they're cuddled up and nice and comfortable in the womb, which is why we recommend you swaddle babies right after they're born just to mimic that space so that it's easier for them. Again, this is an association we're continuing from the womb outside to help remind them that, if you're in this way, it's easier for you to sleep. So yes, a sleep sack or a swaddle does help some babies, but having said that, some babies, to some babies, it does not make a difference. So it honestly depends on your baby. So if you feel your baby sleeps better in a sleep sack, please continue to do so. But like you rightly said, it's better to use a sleep sack once it's started to roll over or attempting to roll over because it avoids the hazard of suffocation.
Noted. Yeah, I think that's basically all the question. Thank you so much for staying till the end. We will share this recording in the next 2 to 3 hours on our YouTube channel, and we'll share the link across along with Nidra's Insta and phone number so that if you have one-on-one questions, you can directly reach out to her. But thank you so much, Aditi. This was such a lovely presentation. Really great to see the very good turnout which happened and the questions which came along. I'm sure everyone learned from this presentation and the questions, which were shared. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Again, I would say that I would love to answer more questions. Like she said, you're free to send me any questions or queries either on my number or on my Instagram. But yeah, thank you so much for your time on a Saturday.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.